So apparently it's been a year since I recorded my first podcast, which is crazy to think about. And to celebrate this small occasion, I decided to wear the same thing I wore in my first video. And admittedly, this is one of my favorite knits. It's Plotulopi, which I made last year using Sandnes Garn Lana. I really want to make another one in black, but this year, unfortunately, I did not have time to do that, so maybe next summer. I have a few finished objects to show you, a few works in progress, some acquisitions, and I need to be at a vintage market that I really want to go to in like an hour and a half, so we'll have to power through it. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for being here with me during this year of me trying to make videos. I'm rambling. Anyway, grab a drink, grab your knitting, let's start. We are really starting with the big guns. The project I wanted to make for years, and I had the yarn for almost a year at this point. And I was really hesitant to start it just because it's color work and I don't enjoy knitting color work. When I do it, it's usually for the finished object and not for the process because the process just irritates me. The style of knitting I'm used to is too slow for efficient color work, so I rarely do it. But surprisingly, I have two, even three color work projects to show you in this video. So what I made was my first lopapeysa sweater. And this is from a Lopi pattern, which I cannot pronounce the name of, and anything that I can't pronounce in this video will just be on the screen because I don't want to make a fool of myself and butcher the pattern names and the designers' names, so it's on the screen. And this is a free pattern, actually. I think most people start with this one just because it's free and the explanation is quite straightforward. I really have to explain myself with this one just because most lopapeysa patterns are made bottom up. I really hate bottom up knitting because I want to be kind of in control of the length and the width of my sweater. I want to be able to try it on and adjust when I knit it. And I knew I will have to flip the pattern to knit it top down, and I did. It wasn't that hard actually because I just needed to flip the chart and start from the top as opposed to from the bottom. I was aiming for the design that the boy wears on the pattern picture, where like 4 of the sizes of the sweater are displayed, because in the actual pattern you have a child's version, women's version, and the men's version. So it's all kind of in the same free pattern, which is great. But there are small differences in the yoke pattern for each size and each like age. And I was aiming for the one that has 3 colors. Hello, this is me editing this video. Apparently I forgot to mention that I used Lopi Lettlopi for this sweater, which is 100% wool, Icelandic wool yarn. I love it. I'm gonna tell you later on all about the colorways and how I love this yarn, but for some reason I don't mention it in the actual introduction of the sweater. Bye. For the one that has 3 colors, so I wanted to incorporate this oatmeal color as my main color and then use white and black for the contrasting yoke, but I decided I didn't want that much contrast, so instead I tried it with this blue and green, and I really like it. I'm so glad I went for it because I really like how these flowers look, kind of like bluebell flowers, and yeah, I love it. I did not do the colorwork section right under the ribbing. I wanted to keep it clean just to add another kind of layer of contrast to the yoke section, and it worked out great. I did not do any ribbing at the bottom just because I tried it with the ribbing and I ended up unraveling it. I didn't like it. I just did an I-cord, which as you can see, even after blocking, is curling, but I think I will be able to steam it. I hope so. The little color work section on the sleeves doesn't have any blue because I forgot to add it. So it's just white, but I think this combo is really great. So let me show you what I used. I used this beautiful blue. I think it's called ocean blue, but I have to look it up and make sure. I used this classic creamy white color, like off-white, and this is the color 51. I also used oatmeal heather as my main color, and it's the color 85. And the green, I'm not sure which one is it because I got it in a leftover Lopi bundle I got last year, but as far as I could tell from looking at the colorways on the Lopi website, this is celery green. I don't know what else to say. I was really afraid that the sleeves are too long, but once it's blocked now, I tried it on. I think they're fine. I was basically on my own after dividing for the sleeves and the body because I made it a little bit wider than the pattern intends for my size. I was knitting women's size M. When I divided for the body and the sleeves ended up being too small and the body was like too big, like not oversized, but just huge. So I didn't try it on until I knit almost a full ball of yarn like in stockinette in the body portion, and I tried it on at like 1 a.m. before going to bed, and I was so upset that I would have to unravel. I just decided I need to unravel immediately because the next morning I would just not want to do it and it'll probably put me off knitting this sweater for a while. So I just unraveled, divided for the sleeves and the body differently to make the sleeves a little bit wider, and it worked out. I love it. I'll insert a video of me wearing it. I would probably make another either lopapeysa or colorwork sweater from Lopi because I have a lot of this white left over, like enough for the main color for another sweater, and let's see how it goes. One bone I have to pick with this yarn: the amount of dust bunnies you get from knitting with Lopi is just so frustrating. I had to vacuum every single time after I sat down to knit this, and I think it's one of the reasons I finished it this fast, just because I didn't want to deal with the dust bunnies anymore. I think it's still shedding wool everywhere, but I love this yarn. It's so scratchy but so warm that it just warms my heart. I think Lopi, like Plotulopi and Lettlopi, is one of my favorite yarns. I also worked with Lopi, but it's a little bit too thick for me. The sweater I made from it is not really that comfortable. It's a little bit clunky when I wear it, but Lettlopi and Plotulopi, one of my favorite yarns. I also got these two colors of Plotulopi in that last year's Icelandic wool bundle I bought, and these are not the colors I would actually purchase myself. They are too bright, but they look so cute together. I really wanted to find a special project for them, and the pattern I ended up choosing was from a book called The Nordic Knitting Primer, which is a book I had for years. Apparently, I don't remember buying it, so I think somebody gifted it to me. The way I found this pattern was not by browsing through a book. I was actually browsing Ravelry for a project that uses a little bit of Plotulopi in two colors. Those slippers really stood out to me, and I was really upset when I saw that this is a pattern from a book and not the one you can purchase straight from the Ravelry store. But then the name of the book sounded familiar, so I searched on my computer, on my phone, and I found this book. Yes, this pattern ended up being a lot easier than expected, even though it's color work all around. The construction of the slippers is super simple. You don't have any short rows. You just knit this like hourglass shaped colorwork section back and forth, and then you cast on more stitches and join the work in the round for the actual foot of the slipper, and then you finish the opening with either a Latvian braid or an I-cord, whatever suits you fancy. And even though there is purling, colorwork purling in this pattern, it's not that bad. I was prepared to suck it up and get it over with until I can reach the section that is knitted in the round, but as I said, it wasn't that bad. The stitch count was pretty small. You have decreases and then increases, but it's still like 32 stitches at most. And the pattern repeat is simple. So knitting these slippers ended up just being easy breezy. I'm so surprised I managed to finish them in just 2 days, and I enjoyed every moment of it. I'm really bummed out I don't get to keep the slippers because I made them for my friend's birthday. I already gifted them to her, and I'm making another pair, which unfortunately I also don't get to keep. I'm also making it in some yarn from that Lopi bundle. I have to alternate one of the contrasting colors. You can see it here. One is more gray and one is more beige, just because, as I said, it's a bundle. I don't have enough. I have what I have. I wasn't able to use this cherry color again just because I don't think I will have enough. I don't think I can stretch it for another pair of slippers. I'll incorporate it into something else, but I'm gonna spam you with the videos of those finished slippers, which I'm absolutely in love with. I hope she appreciates it. I know she does, but it was really hard to part with them. It is such a shame that stores here don't sell Plotulopi specifically. I can find Lettlopi, but not the unspun Plotulopi version, and it breaks my heart. I have a yarn combo that I... One second. We interrupt this podcast to show you this lady who was snoring in the background and distracting me, and I know it's cruel to wake up a cat who is so comfortable that she's snoring like an old man, but I guess I'm a cruel cat person. When I finally get to do a version of these slippers for myself, I think I will use the yarn I have left over from my Luma sweater. Not as bright and pink and girly as this version, but good enough. So I'll keep you posted when I cast them on. The third and last finished object for today is another pattern that was easy breezy. This is Petite Knit's Holiday Slipover. I wanted to make it for a long time, but I rarely work with chunky or bulky yarns. And this pattern is knit in 9 or 10 millimeter needles, and the combo it asks for is quite beefy. And I finally found the perfect yarn for it. Well, almost perfect, because I still had to size down to 7 millimeter needles, which was not that hard because I just had to make a swatch, count my gauge, and compare it to the gauge indicated in the pattern. I ended up multiplying the gauge in the pattern by 125, and that gave me my stitch count. So any stitches indicated for my size, I just multiplied by 125, and it worked out great. The yarn I used is a hand-spun yarn, so like a rustic hand-spun yarn that I got from a vintage yarn shop. It doesn't have a label, it doesn't have anything, but it's, I'm pretty sure, 100% wool. And to make it more airy and less scratchy, I added some leftover yarn. This is Silk plus Alpaca mohair. This is Yarna Aria. I didn't use this color specifically, I just don't have any of the brown left over to show you. It's the same yarn that I used for my light loop sweater, which I talked about last time. I had some of it left over in brown. So in the beginning, I bought this yarn to make some slippers for my boyfriend, but when I received the 3 skeins, I started winding them and realized that I have probably a lot more meterage than I need for the slippers. So I don't want to waste it for a pair of slippers and then have some left over, not enough for another pair. So I tried to make the gauge work for the holiday sleepover that I, as I said, wanted to make for a long time, and everything worked out. I really like it. I like how the yarn marls. I didn't alternate skeins or anything, it's just doing it on its own, and it still has some bits of hay and stuff poking through, but I think with a couple of washes later on it'll fall out, hopefully. I really like this color, and I also really like how big this armhole opening is, just because it makes it look so nice with some puffy sleeves underneath. So I can't wait to wear it. I have to confess something. This is gonna come as a shock, but my favorite thing to knit is not garments, is not mindless stockinette knitting. It's lace doilies. I freaking love knitting lace doilies. It's such an involved work for a project that is so small and useless, but I just enjoy it so much. It's so relaxing, and it's so nice to see how the pattern evolves the more you knit it. I just wish I had more purpose in them in my interior, because every time I put one down, my apartment just immediately turns into grandma's house. I haven't knit a doily in a while just because it doesn't use a lot of yarn, and I wanted to do a little bit of a stash busting. But when we had a heat wave in July, I was just not in the mood for any knitting, to be honest. So to kind of get myself back into it, I decided to let myself finally knit a doily. And this is a free pattern on the website called yarnover.com. I think it was archived or something, but I'll put a link in the description. You can find it on Ravelry. And if you like to knit doilies, give it a go. My tip for knitting them is to put a stitch marker after every pattern repeat. So when you make a mistake, you can always spot exactly where it is. And also you can double check your stitch count and if everything kind of lines up correctly, and put a lifeline if you need to. I don't need to put a lifeline. I'm that good. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I don't have to put a lifeline because I'm usually making a lot of notes in the pattern that I'm using. Like I put a plus after every repeat I've done so I don't get lost. And yeah, block them aggressively If you like doilies, let me know. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I'm making this one slowly. I kind of lost steam to work on it once the heat wave passed, and now I'm more into, as you can see, woolly knits for the fall. I'm gonna finish this one eventually, and as I said, I'm gonna frame it probably on like a black background for additional contrast. Love doilies. I'm a grandma at heart. Back to more conventional works in progress. I've been working on this Peacock Cardigan, which is another pattern by the same designer that made the palma tee, and it has a really similar yoke lace pattern. And I'm not sure why it's taking me so long to finish it. I'm so close. I just need to finish up this sleeve and do the button band and I'll be done. But I don't know what's wrong with me, honestly. Instead of finishing it, I started a completely new sweater, which I finished already, and a slipover, a pair of slippers, and it's just, I don't know why I don't want to work on it. I've been trying really hard to find a suitable project for this yarn, which is Pura Lana by Gepard Garn. It's a DK weight yarn, and I bought enough last year in Copenhagen to make a sweater, but for some reason, most of the patterns that use this yarn use it with silk mohair. And for the life of me, I couldn't find a silk mohair in this chocolate color to pair with this yarn. I scrolled through like most of the online stores in Ukraine, and either it was way too expensive for me, or it was nylon, or it was not the right color. So I needed to use it on its own, and this pattern is the only one which used the right amount of yarn and used this yarn on its own. This pattern doesn't call for this yarn specifically, but the gauge is spot on, so I found the perfect pattern for it. I worked through most of this cardigan. Why I cannot just finish it is beyond me. I don't know. I think I had the same issue last year with the Alfred sweater. I had everything lined up to just do it, but I was just stalling for like 3 months. And by the time I finished it, my nephew, who was the intended recipient, actually grown, and the sweater ended up being too small for him. Oh God, I need to finish this cardigan, wish me luck. I even found a perfect set of buttons for this cardigan. As you can see, it pairs really nicely with this chocolate color, maybe because they're both chocolate colored. My last whip for today is the Maggie cardigan, which I would honestly classify, got all tangled up. I would honestly classify it as a t-shirt, like buttoned t-shirt, but it's a cardigan. It's a newish pattern from Petite Knit, which I also started, I think back in June or May, and I haven't worked on it because I was making it right before I got sick, and I was already with my flu, and I was at the point in the pattern where you do this weird picking up thing where you knit a little bit of the front and then you need to go back and pick stitches on the side of the panel that you just knitted. I just read through the instructions and I was like, nope, not today. No, I'm not doing it. My brain is too foggy to comprehend this information because this construction was new to me and I did not want to ruin it. So I left it for a couple of months. Then the heat wave came. I started knitting the doily. I worked a little bit on the Peacock cardigan. And now that it's probably going to be too cold by the time I finish it, I'm finally working on it again. I hope I can finish it in time to take some nice pictures of it outside. And this is a compromise because, as you know, I'm always eager to make another puff tee. It's been kind of a leitmotif of my podcasts that I want to make a third puff tee, but I want to try something else. Even if trying something else is to make the super popular Petite Knit pattern. The yarn I'm using is the yarn I talked about before. I bought this country tweed find from Lana Grossa. It's just a classic tweed wool. I wanted to make an Illa sweater from it, which you know if you watch my podcasts. If you don't, what are you doing? After you finish this one, go back and watch the previous episodes. I'm rambling there too, so you'll love it. I started my Illa sweater. I went past the yoke, so I finished the yoke, divided for the sleeves, tried it on, hated it. So ever since I unraveled that sweater, I was looking for a perfect pattern to use up the pretty small quantity of yarn I bought for it. And I'm glad I found the Maggie pattern because it's classic stockinette. It calls for pretty much the exact amount of yarn I have, so I just need to choose the buttons and finish it. Sounds pretty simple. So that's all for projects. I have one more acquisition besides the handspun yarn I use for the holiday slipover, and this is Sandnes Garn's Alpaca silk. It's this super fancy alpaca and silk lace weight yarn, or like light fingering. The color I've got is 2521. I don't know the colorway name, I'll call it powdery blush or something, and I'm planning to make a shawl from it. I'm not sure which pattern exactly. I'm kind of torn between two, a pattern called Victorian Sherry's Garden something. I'll put it on the screen, but I wanted to make that shawl for a while. It's a beautiful pattern, but I'm not sure I'll get enough wear out of it with it being so Victorian and lacy. I'm not ready to channel my inner grandma that much. The safer option I have is a free pattern called Texture Shawl Recipe from the same designer that made the Illa sweater. And if you watch Retro Claude, which, side note, I love her, she basically ignited my interest in sewing after a lot of like years of absolutely disastrous sewing attempts. And in her videos, sometimes she wears this terracotta shawl, which is made from the textured shawl recipe pattern. So maybe I'll make that one. Maybe I'll make the Victorian grandma shawl. I'm not sure, but regardless, I have the yarn. I bought a lot more than I needed just because I didn't want to play yarn chicken again. I'm so sick of playing yarn chicken. Yes, most of the time I do win at yarn chicken, but I was playing it with the slippers with the lopapeysa sweater because you see how much I have left of the blue. I also played it with the holiday slipover, so most of my projects I play yarn chicken and I don't want to. I bought myself more yarn than I needed and now I feel safe and secure in my future projects. And with that said, I really need to run to that vintage fair. I've been there yesterday. Let me show you what I got. I bought this really cute vase, which kind of looks like jellyfish. I can do this all day. I also got 2 pairs of earrings. One I'm wearing right now, as you can see, they're actually clip-ons, which I usually don't like. I talked about it to my mom and we decided that clip-on earrings, especially if they're heavy, are the uncomfortable heels for your ears. But these ones are super light and surprisingly comfortable. They also kind of look like those chocolate eggs from Lindt or stuff we get for Christmas or Easter that are in this gold foil, so I think they're cute. The second pair I got are not clip-ons. Oh yeah, they're on the floor. Great. These are just your classic vintage earrings. Maybe there's nothing special about them, but they look special to me. I wear something like this almost every day, so I'm glad it's part of my collection now. And the reason I want to go back to that vintage fair today is because I just fell in love with this locket that is actually a clock. I told the vendor I would think about it, and I really did, because for the last 24 hours, that's all I could think about. I really want that locket. It looks so unique. Please hope with me that it's still there. I'll let you know if I got it. If not, I'll have to get over it, but fingers crossed. Thank you so much for keeping me company today. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give it a like. You can subscribe if you want to. You don't have to, but I would really appreciate it if you do. As always, let me know what you're working on. I would love to know what are your current knitting projects. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Bye, I have to go.